We are here in the studio live for the AskASwimPro show. My name is Ksebati. I'm joined by Paige Walters, and we are here to answer your swimming questions. But first, Paige, you asked a really good question before we started live. You asked who went swimming today.
Yeah.
So did you go swimming today?
I did not go swimming yet.
So if you guys are watching on the live, I want to hear, did you go swimming today? And if you did, how far did you swim? Was it hard? Was it easy? You know, swimming is considered one of the most difficult sports, and I think swimming is actually the most difficult sport. What do you think?
I agree. It's tough.
Why do you think swimming is maybe more difficult than other sports? Or why do swimmers, is it just they think they're working harder than everyone? I mean, why do swimmers think that they're putting in more work than everyone else?
For me, the hardest challenge is having it be it's kind of a team sport, but it's very mental, and you're very much alone. It can get boring. You're swimming alone. Your head is underwater. You can't talk very much. You're not working one-on-one with your teammates very often. So that's hard. You got to find like the inner strength inside of you to push yourself and to make yourself show up to the pool. And it gets kind of boring staring at a black line back and forth. But we love it. But that's a big challenge for me. I find that I need to like switch it up and make things more fun. What about you?
I think swimming is really difficult for a number of reasons. First of all, it can get really lonely because if you think about it, you're staring at the bottom of the pool, going back and forth, and you have a lot of time to yourself, which is really nice, but it can get old really fast, and there's only so many songs you can sing to yourself in your head before it gets really boring. One of the things that really helps with that is swimming with other people.
Yeah.
So if you train on a team, swimming is really an individual sport, but if you can train on a team and you can swim with other people, that helps a lot. But a lot of people don't have that opportunity to swim with others, so they're pretty much on their own, and I think that's one of the reasons that makes swimming so difficult, and it makes it so difficult to get back into if you fall out of your routine. It's not as easy as running where you can just, I'm going to go jog, 5K right now.
Yeah.
And swimming, not only that, but accessibility to a pool makes swimming more difficult because you have to actually go to a physical location to do the activity. It's not as easy
You can't just
as
run on a sidewalk.
you can't just do sit-ups and push-ups, in your living room or in your bedroom. You don't have to leave your bedroom to do a workout. But swimming, you actually have to get yourself to a pool. You often have to pay money, whether you're registering for a team or just accessing the pool. So that's another reason.
Yeah.
But I think there's what's the biggest reason that I think makes swimming the most difficult? Thoughts? What do you think? I have something in my mind. I believe that there's something that's makes swimming way harder than anything else. What do you think?
Well, you have to swim through water. That's pretty hard. It's not like just running
Water is
through air.
800 times more dense than air. It is so difficult.
Yeah.
So not only are you're using your every muscle in your body when you swim because you have to go through a medium that's unlike any other land sport. So whether you're running or even if you're doing a team sport like soccer or football, it's not going to be as difficult because you're moving through air. Your body's conditioned to move through air. Like right now, it's very easy to move your limbs, and we're fortunate that we're able-bodied and we can move our limbs. But in the water, it's a whole nother animal, and it's way more difficult. And I think there's another reason. The fact that you're in the water not only gives you're in more resistance, but what else?
You can't breathe.
You're right, you can't breathe. So the fact that you're
literally doing a sport where you're holding your breath for at least half of it.
Yes. And if you watch like the best swimmers in the world, they're not even breathing that much. So they're going through extreme physical exertion and they can't even breathe. Unbelievable. All right, what are the comments saying here? We want to get more into this, but I want to see what the community is saying and why swimming's difficult. It is not easy, but with the right community support, I mentioned swimming is very individual. It can be, you feel like you're isolated. You're in a chamber almost in the water, and it can be really hard. So let's see what other people have to say.
Minalu says all cardio sports are difficult, especially swimming. We agree. We have people training for Pan Americans. What I want to hear from you guys on Instagram Live, Facebook Live, is what do you think about when you're in the pool, right? Like, what do you think about when you're just bored and you're going back and forth staring at a black line? What do you think about?
So it's different now than when I trained in college. In college, we would do super, super long sets. like 12 400s. And so I would have songs like that you would hum. Obviously, you're thinking about the set that you're doing and you're trying to hit certain times. So a lot of the time I'm thinking about the pace that I'm going. So if I'm doing those 12 400s, it's like, all right, this is on the 5 minute. I need to be averaging 112s and I'm breathing every 25. So every like 12 seconds, 15 seconds, I'm looking at the clock at least. So I'm thinking about the performance of the actual swim that I'm doing, and then I'm just humming songs back and forth. Sometimes I even would think about what I had scheduled later in the day, which isn't good because it can distract you from what you actually want to accomplish in the set. Now, because my workouts are so much smaller and I have very specific goals, I'm always thinking about my performance on the set. So I'm not really doing 12 400s anymore. I might be doing 12 50s, and I'm trying to hit a certain time and stroke count and feel the water on every single 50. So now, because I'm swimming much shorter workouts, like 30, 40 minutes, I'm very focused on the performance of the actual swim. But I know a lot of people aren't like that. A lot of people go and swim 30 minutes straight just to mentally go to a different place.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah. We have a couple other people that agree. They sing songs. Some people, or someone said they sing chill songs.
Chill.
Which is unique because I feel like usually when you think of a workout playlist or music, you're thinking of this high intensity upbeat songs, but I do the same thing. Sometimes I'm just like humming a slow song. But when I swim, it's a total mental hour. I find that I do my best like creative brainstorming and thinking when I'm swimming, and for some reason things just pop in my head and I think about just things in life. I think about my swim pro, I think about work, I think about my friends, I go through like, that's kind of my meditation hour. So what can you think about? You're all to yourself. I don't know. Things pop in my head a lot when I'm swimming.
All right, so what if someone says, you know what, swimming is not the hardest sport? False. Soccer is way harder than swimming because of X, Y, and Z. Why? What would you tell them? Like, no, you're wrong, or would you agree with them?
I would disagree. I think swimming is unlike a lot of sports because you can cross-train and you can strength train, but you have to be in the water to get a feel for the water and to be good at swimming. Unlike a soccer player, you can go run, you can play volleyball, you can kind of do these other sports and it's all kind of helping and you're good at multiple things because it's a land sport. Whereas swimming, you have to put in the hours in the pool or else it's not going to work. And I think that's unique in the fact that it's a lot of technique, it's a lot of mental focus, whereas soccer is a little bit more like scrappier. There's technique with your teammates and the ball, and you have hand-eye coordination. Yeah. But swimming is a total mental game, and it's individual. So it is like you put the hours in, you focus on your technique, and what you put into it is what you're going to get out.
Agreed. So that's soccer and football. Those are land-based sports, which are very different than swimming, which is water-based. So oftentimes you see a lot of athletes that are really good out of the water, and then a lot of swimmers are only good in the water, right? So how about now water polo, right? You're a water polo player. So where do you see any crossover, or do you think water polo and swimming, like, which one do you think is harder, and how much crossover do you think there is in the different pieces of it?
They're very similar. I think, for me, swimming is harder. For me, I admit, like, I love water polo. I think water polo is hard in a different way. It requires a lot more, like, skill focus on many different skills, because not only do you have to swim, but you have to communicate with your teammates. You have to learn how to touch the ball, move the ball. There's a lot of wrist movements, hand movements, body positioning, team play, a lot of other things you have to worry about. But swimming is so important in water polo. If you can't swim, you're screwed. And
you need to be a good swimmer.
Yeah, and you need to be swimming like different ways. So there's like there's kind of swimming on your side, swimming on your back, swimming heads up, heads down, swimming laterally. So it's a different kind of focus. But swimming is so hard for me, like more than water polo, because it takes so much individual drive. You're not distracted by, let's just go do a shooting drill and then I'll be better. And you're really just kind of sitting there shooting. Whereas swimming, you have to put in the distance or else you're not going to get better.
You got to put in the work.
Yeah. I don't know.
Gotta put in the work.
What about you? What else? Why else do you think swimming is hard?
I think a lot of it, what you said about the individual drive, you can't just show up and then you're gonna get faster at swimming. You have to swim. So unless you're putting in the volume, and you also mentioned it, the frequency, you have to swim all the time to get better at swimming. Whereas a land-based sport, you can do multiple land-based sports and land-based dry land activities that will contribute. In swimming, you have to swim to get better at swimming. You can do dry land, but that's all supplementary to the core, which is just going back and forth in the pool. And the reason for that is because the water is 800 times more dense than air and you're building a feel of the water, that feel deteriorates a lot faster than other land-based activities, because when you're on land, just by simply walking around, like you're engaging some of those muscles. And swimming, you won't hit a lot of the fine musculature unless you're actually in the water manipulating your body the way you would when you actually swim. So, pool time is huge. I see a lot of comments coming from the community. I can't, it's too far away, I can't read them.
Let's answer some questions here.
Let's see what people are saying from the Instagram Live. Okay, water polo. All right, what else are people saying?
So we got some people basically saying water polo, you have to be able to swim in order to play water polo. We had someone ask a question. Here's a good one. James Hootie. Tell them to get in the pool for an hour and see if they still think the same. I'm sure he's probably talking about
that's good.
Football
So
players.
anytime someone says, swimming's not a real sport, you can probably survive an hour of their workout, but they're not going to survive an hour. I mean, they will survive, hopefully, but they're not going to be quite so satisfied at the end of 60 minutes of swimming back and forth. They're going to feel most likely really, really exhausted and out of shape because, like we said, when you swim, you can't breathe. So if you're in that environment, and just because you're in really good aerobic conditioning, like you're an endurance cyclist or a runner, or you do anything that involves out-of-water cardio, in the pool, it's completely different. So you can have a really low resting heart rate and be in really good shape, but unless your body has been trained to do that activity in oxygen debt, you have no chance of being very, very good at swimming without putting in the work.
We've got Swim for Life says, I think about what I'm going to eat after practice. I think everyone does that.
Yeah, food. Yeah, thanks, Swim
food.
for Life. I see Marcelo join what did Marcelo say? Hey, hi.
Marcelo's here.
What's up, Marcelo? Marcelo is the 100-meter butterfly champion of the Brazilian, whatever Masters meet that he was at. Give a shout out to Marcelo.
We got a question from Nigel Loves Swimming. How can I fix my uneven breaststroke kick?
Ooh.
It's a good question. So if you have any other questions about swimming technique, now's your time to ask them.
All right, this is another one that makes swimming difficult. Is there's not just one stroke. There's all the strokes. They all have different rules. There's different technique. You can be really good at one stroke and be terrible at another stroke. So breaststroke is a really good example. So Nigel, here's the answer to your breaststroke. So breaststroke and fly are symmetrical. So it's good that you recognize that one side is not doing what the other is. So it sounds like your kick is what you're trying to work on. The best way to improve that is to isolate it and only work on your kick. So don't try and work on your kick within the actual stroke. So what you're going to do is you're going to only focus on your kick. You're going to be in streamline, right? So your arms are together in streamline over your head. And either on your stomach or on your back, you're just going to kick, and you're going to slow it down and focus on your feet going up, out, around, and together. And it sounds like one of your feet is already doing the right thing. So by going slow and isolating just your feet, doing drills on your back, even with a kickboard. So even if you're doing, kicking drills with a kickboard, just focus on isolating the kick, think in your head up, out, around, and together, and make sure your feet finish. It sounds like, we haven't seen you swim, so we don't really know what it looks like, but the way you described it, maybe one foot you're doing it correct, and the other, your foot is pointed and you're not flexed. Both feet need to be flexed, so just slow it down. Don't worry about how fast you're going, and isolate just the kick, and don't worry about anything else. And then once you feel really confident doing that, then you can start to introduce it into the actual stroke and do some other drills. But we have a bunch of great breaststroke drills in the AskASwimPro app, so you should check it out.
Here's another point. So why swimming is so hard. Let's talk about the competition factor of it.
Ooh,
so
race.
Why is it hard to prepare for a race? There's all these calculations and figuring out how your distance, figuring out your your start, like there's a lot of different components that go into competing. So why do you think that's really hard to figure out or to master?
Like how you should maybe split a race or how you should swim. I mean, that's all hard too, right? So So it's not just swim fast. I mean, a 50 freestyle is executed very differently from a 1500 meter freestyle, and it takes different training to be good at those different events. I think that's one of the things that is remarkable about an athlete like Michael Phelps, because you see him dominating in so many events, but what a lot of people don't realize is you have to train differently to be good at all those different events. So the fact that he can win the 200 freestyle and the 400 IM in the same competition at the Olympic Games is incredible. So that's another thing that makes swimming difficult. You have to specialize if you want to be really good at something. It's rare that, in track and field, you'll never see someone win the 100 meter and the 400 meter at the same time.
True.
No one will ever, it doesn't happen like that, right? Usain Bolt won't win the 400. I'm sure he'd be great at it, but he won't win the 400. Maybe a better example would be something like a hurdle distance. So normally you specialize in each of those different things. So in swimming, it's the same. Yeah. You have to really focus your training and then your race strategy, and you have to do it over and over and over again, which is different from like basketball, where you need to know how to shoot.
Or like water polo or soccer or football, you usually don't play goalie and a field player, right? Those are two very different skills you have to train for, positions you have to train for, which is very,
right.
It's very true.
But in basketball, you do have some specialization. You have like a center, you have a guard. But at the end of the day, everyone who plays basketball is going to shoot the ball at the net at some point. So, it's specialized, but not as specialized potentially as swimming, where you have a different event that you're actually focused on performing for a certain segment of time.
Yeah. What about open water swimming?
Oh, and that's a whole other sport. I wouldn't even consider. I would consider you have pool swimming, and then you have open water swimming. And open water swimming is it's kind of like water polo swimming. Like these are different sports. So people who are really good at open water, they specialize in open water. And it's really rare at the elite level to see someone compete in the pool and then also compete at that same level in open water. If you're a good swimmer, it's great. You're gonna be good at both. But to be really good, you're gonna have to specialize. And then open water, you're not defined by lane markers anymore. You're literally swimming on top of other swimmers, drafting and all the strategy associated with how you position yourself and manage your energy through the aerobic activity. That's completely different than pool swimming. Pool swimming, you're not going to be able to draft. We have an awesome whiteboard Wednesday about open water drafting, which you should check out, and we'll link somewhere in the description. But yeah, open water swimming is different from pool swimming, different from water polo. Just because they're aquatic sports doesn't mean they're the same. And that's why at the Olympic Games and World Championships, they're completely different events. Swimming, open water, right? It's all different.
Yeah, open water swimming is...
It's hard. Yeah. I can't read those questions. Maybe we'll take a couple more questions and then we'll wrap things up for this episode of Ask a Swim Pro show. Let's see what people are saying on the feed. What is your favorite brief brand and would you recommend? I wear a brief. That maybe is a question for the guys, but
Explain about lifeguard tests.
Oh, lifeguard. That's actually another sport. It's not in like the Olympics or anything, but lifeguarding is super important because so if you go to, a lot of beaches on the coast of the United States, and even if you leave the US, there are actual lifeguard competitions where you do a series of tests. It involves swimming, involves life-saving, and you have to be a very strong swimmer. And there's actually different skills to be a great lifeguard than being a great swimmer. So you can be an amazing swimmer, but not know the skills for life-saving. And the lifeguard, who has all this training and might specialize, may not be as fast as the competitive pool swimmer, but they can do a better job at saving someone's life. So it's, and you should, if you go online, you can search different lifeguard competitions. It's pretty crazy.
It's pretty cool. Some of them include running, like you run on the beach. Some of them include boats. They're like you're boating out. You're carrying people. I think that's I've been very interested in like getting into that. So if you live by the coast, definitely recommend. If you want to switch up your swimming, that's a great example of if you're kind of burnt out and you're getting some swimming like fatigue. If you've been swimming for 4 or 5 months, you're kind of ready to switch it up. Try something new for the summer, for the fall, and do a new sport that's still incorporating, like you're still in the water, but it's mixing it up, make it a little bit more fun.
And last
Sure.
week we talked about swimming fatigue and burnout and different ways that you can combat the fact of getting old in the pool. But, so if you take a break for a few months and then you can rejuvenate yourself mentally and physically, and then when you get back in the pool, you get the MySwimPro app and you can get a lot of great help from our community and everything like that. All right,
Sorry,
let's go
guys,
one
keep dropping the
more
phone.
comment or question from the community on Instagram. You guys have been awesome today. Thanks so much for tuning in.
So we have two questions. We have one from Marcus. What about breaks and intervals controlled by heart rate? And then one from
Ooh.
MD Aliziajar. Can you
Okay.
explain an important drill for breaststroke?
All right, so I'm going to answer both of them, and then we're going to
Two
sign
questions.
off. So the breaststroke drill that I recommend for most swimmers is something that you've probably seen is the 2 kick, 1 pull. So you're in streamline, hands are together, and you go 2 kicks, and then 1 pull, and you breathe when you do the pull. And the reason why this drill is so good is it depends on what you focus on. So for this drill, you focus on your timing. And the goal is to elongate your body in streamline. So it's pull, kick, glide, and then you do another kick while you're in streamline. And so that really forces you to really stretch out your stroke. And over the course of 50 meters, you shouldn't really need a lot of strokes because you're spending most of your time gliding in streamline. So 2 kick, 1 pull, definitely recommend it. We have a video in the MySwimPro app about that one actually. And the second question was about using your heart rate or different ways that you can break apart a set. So let's say, typically if you do interval training and you did 450s freestyle on the minute, so let's say you swim it in 40 seconds, so you get 20 seconds of rest. But let's say you're not really feeling that, you want to mix it up. So you can actually do by breath count. That's the next most common way to do interval training. So instead of doing it by a clock, let's say you don't have a pace clock, you don't have a smartwatch, you don't have anything, you can still do 450s, but instead of doing them on the minute, you do it on 10 breaths rest. So every time you exhale, that counts as a breath. So you touch the wall, and then you go off of your own internal clock, and you just count how many times you breathe. And it can be 5, it can be 10, depends on how much you want to do. But that's really good because it keeps you consistent. So that way you're not taking a variable amount of rest between every single rep, and you don't need a clock. And that's also a good way to regulate your breathing and get your breath control under control. And that lowers your heart rate much faster because you're trying to stretch out how long each breath lasts, so that way you get more rest on the wall. And then you mentioned heart rate. So the equivalent of that is you would need a pace clock of some sort to know what your heart rate is, or a smartwatch. And you basically wouldn't leave for the next repetition until your heart rate gets below a certain level. So let's say you wouldn't do that for 50s, you might do that for like 4 500s. So you did 4 500s, and you don't start the next 500 until your heart rate goes under 120 beats per minute. So that way you're recovered enough and you feel fresh. So you do a 500, and then your heart rate is at 160 beats per minute, and then you wait however much time you need to recover to get your heart rate down under 120. I definitely recommend all of them. Interval training is still the best form of training with a pace clock. And then the second best method is doing breath count if you don't have a pace clock. And then heart rate's a little bit fancier technique, but if you know what you're doing with your heart rate, that's definitely something that works out. But that's all we have time for on today's episode of Ask a Swim Pro Show. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Paige, any closing thoughts
I think
to the
we're all
fans?
good. Tune in every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Next week, we will be at Pan Am Masters Championships in Orlando, Florida. So tune in on our Instagram stories. We'll be giving you some behind-the-scenes action. We're all racing, so we'll see you there.